Let us start. There will be time. We're going to have a break about halfway through. It's like kind of a more best part of 2 hours. You're free to come and go. Obviously, I would say come and go and come back as well. But we'll have a break if we want to chat, renew acquaintances and all that. It's great to see a real mix of ages here, as should be the case when it comes to worship. And not that we're doing worship as such, but it may kind of slip in perhaps as we go along, as we think about these things. We're very blessed and happy to have with us today, as well as Sung Yun, the assistant, research assistant. We have indeed Tim Duguid, who's come all the way from Glasgow. Well, he's come all the way from Kansas, I think, originally. I mistook his accent for a Northern Irish one. It just shows what my skills of listening are. But no, he's the real deal from the Midwest. But has been in Scotland for some time. Did a PhD with Jane Dawson at New College in Edinburgh in the days of the Ward Salter project, which some of you may have heard of, which was a great sort of flowering of I suppose grassroots was maybe not quite the right word, but it wouldn't be a wrong word either. I don't know what to call it, elitist, of kind of something which was, might want to call it a soft reformation, but on the other hand, also a great cultural achievement at the time. And Tim could say more about that. In fact, he could say a lot more about a lot of things, which I'm going to be quiet. Just say that he is senior lecturer in digital humanities at the University of Glasgow, but very well connected with folks like Scott Spurlock in theology and religious studies, and sort of who does Reformation, early modern stuff, of course, and people in the very strong history school there, etc., etc. Tim, I won't say anything more. We're delighted to have you with us, and the floor is yours. And thanks everyone for coming online as well. Very welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much for allowing me to come and share a bit of the work that I've been doing here at at the University of Glasgow. We're going to get the slides up and going here in a second, but as we do so, I'll just quickly introduce myself. So as already stated, my name is Tim Duguid. I am senior lecturer in digital media and information studies at the University of Glasgow. And what does that mean? Well, somehow I ended up getting a job teaching tech-related things to students, even though my own background is more of music history, and indeed my PhD was on early modern psalm singing, right after the period of the Reformation, both here in Scotland and also down in England. Since then, I've been doing a lot of work on what we call digital humanities. So I'll do a quick introduction about what we mean when we talk about digital humanities. Hopefully we'll get the slides going here in a second, and we can do that. But so I said that my background is actually in music and music history in particular. So the big fancy term that we use for someone who studies music is musicology. And if we sort of split that out, you have music and then you have ology, which is the study of, right? So that means just the study of music. Then if you sort of tack on the word digital to that, then you sort of extrapolate that means something to do with technology, in other words. So that's a lot of the work that I do. Looks like we almost have the slides ready to go. So that is fantastic. Perfect. All right. So yes, I have a history in early modern metrical psalmody. I did work on the Wood Salter project there at the University of Edinburgh, which, if you're looking at the slides there, those are books there on your left. But then I also looked at the Scottish metrical psalters that were produced there right after the Reformation. So we're talking about 1564, so a long time ago, right? But then we're also looking at the English metrical psalter, which was slightly different, but related. But it was produced 2 years earlier than the Scottish one. So yes, the English did beat the Scots to the punch with that one, I'm afraid. But what I looked at was sort of how the two compared. But then I sort of took this sort of digital turn, as it were. And so you might be sort of thinking, okay, what is a digital musicologist? What does this mean to use technology to help us do things with music? So hopefully you'll have seen something like what you see pictured there on the left, where we have a nice score. It is in handwriting, so it might be a little bit more difficult to read than if you were to print it. However, hopefully you've seen something similar to that. But what we do, one of the things that we can do as digital musicologists is to take something like what we have there on the left and turn it into something like what we have on the right. And that is transforming that code, that score, into some code that the computer can actually work with, and it can understand what is there on that score, and we can start to do some really cool things, which hopefully the examples that we will be highlighting for you here today will help to showcase some of those things that we can do once we start encoding those. So hopefully I can get to the next slide. Great. So sorry, 1 second. We'll get our.
I think people online cannot see the slides. Is that right? I'm just trying to.
There's always, this is the thing with even though I work in digital humanities, usually we're quite familiar with technology, and you would think that therefore we can fix all the problems. And I am very grateful to have Rob here to do all the juggling for me. But there is always a problem whenever there's some sort of presentation of digital humanities. So welcome to the club. You are not missing out on anything in terms of presentations as far as digital humanities go. But hopefully we'll get this working for the folks online as well. But yeah, so my background then is there music, but then there's also this technology thread as well. And my own church background, though, is from the Reformed Presbyterian Church, and I attend Reformed Presbyterian Church down in Airdrie, where we use a split leaf Psalter, which you might be familiar with. If you're not, I have some examples over here on the table that you're welcome to look at. But these books have two booklets with them. You have a booklet of tunes, and then you have a booklet of texts. And the idea is that you take the tune, you select the tune, or actually probably more than likely, you're going to select the text first. Select your text and then figure out a tune that you can use with that text. Now, in one sense, this was quite an innovation when it was first conceived, because people were using technology, the technology of printing books, to allow people to match a tune with a text that they were familiar wanting to sing, right? So in a sense, this is fantastic technology. But on the other hand, can we do it better, particularly in the digital age? And this is the question that I started to ask. Now, you might have heard of this thing that happened several years ago, 6 years ago, hard to believe. But anyway, so people were, of course, locked into their homes. People started finding out, okay, what can I do with my time? These types of things. And so, yes, many of the days I sort of looked like my dog, Dexter is his name, sort of figuring out what am I going to do with my life, and oftentimes taking naps in the afternoon, these types of things, right? But I started to think, okay, I already have a lot of metrical psalms encoded. I already have the data, right? And I know how to do some cool things with that data online. So why don't I start building something that might be of use to the church as a whole? And so I started to look at what options are currently available to people who want to sing the Psalms and not use a book. In other words, what apps exist, what websites exist. And I identified 3 of those apps. So the one on the left, of course, is the Sing Psalms app produced by the Free Church. And it provides you a lovely text. It allows you to play back the Psalms, and we'll take a look at what all of these do here in a second, but that's just a screenshot of that. Then there was the 1650 Psalter, which provides access to the 1650 Scottish metrical version, also providing several features as well. And then finally, Just as an example, the American Reformed Presbyterian Church produced an app to go with their Psalter, and that was also very similar to all the others, but nonetheless still the type of thing. And hopefully, whatever that is, I'm not sure.
It's Microsoft.
Microsoft going crazy. All right. Well, that's the one. All right. Hopefully. All right, great. So if I did then actually break this down into each app and sort of say, okay, what can we sort of say are some features that each one of these has or doesn't have? And we do a comparison of these. I've listed them out for you. And I've added a fourth one. It's called Sing Your Part, which is one that is not strictly metrical psalms. It also incorporates some hymns to it. But you'll notice that they all have some things in common. For instance, they all allow you to play back the psalm. They all allow you to change the tempo, so how fast or how slow the psalm is played. But then after that, all of them are slightly different. Each of them have their strengths and their weaknesses. So for instance, the Sing Psalms doesn't allow you to isolate a particular voice. So if I'm wanting to learn how to sing alto, so if I'm a young person here, I'm like, you know what, I'd like to learn how to sing alto. If you're using the Sing Psalms app, unfortunately, it won't allow you to isolate that alto line to sort of help you figure out where your part is, right? Whereas if you're looking at, for instance, a 1650 app, it does allow you to isolate that alto part so you can figure out where your particular part is. Other things, for instance, the Sing Psalms is quite innovative because it allows you to transpose the playback. So if you're not particularly comfortable with the particular pitches that are notated there on the app, you can change it on the fly and you can make it so that you can actually sing it. Another innovative feature, this one with the 1650 app that they've just added here in the past few days, actually, is for you to actually hear the text just spoken and read to you. So lots of different things that each of the apps does, but you'll notice one column in particular is knows, and that is archival quality data. So none of these apps format data in ways that we know will be stable in the future. And I'll get to that and what we mean by that. And none of them, apart from the Sing Psalms with some exceptions, really allow others to use the data that their applications are using themselves. So we're talking about proprietary data. So we're saying there's closed data, and we're also saying that maybe not particularly friendly to future proofing. So in short, all of the options require an app to download that you download from a store, right? In some ways, that's quite easy to do and quite common. I mean, I'm sure several of the kids even have downloaded an app or two on their phones, right? So that's something that's quite common today. And in one sense, there is a convenience to that because you don't necessarily have to be connected to the internet in order to look at the psalm and play it and all these things. However, if you are in a particular part of this world where the authorities don't really like for you to look at things such as passages from the Bible, you could potentially be jailed or get in trouble for having something like that on your device. So an app is actually less secure for people in those types of situations. Whereas if they could go on a website, use incognito mode or something like this, they could clear their search history, all these types of things. That's a little bit more secure for them, or a secure option for them. I'll also note that none of the apps that I have seen allow you to track playback. So as I play the score, it's actually going to show where I am in the score. So that if I'm trying to learn how to read music, if I'm a young person trying to learn how to read music, I don't have the option of just following along as it's playing. It does not allow people to contribute new tunes. None of these allow people to contribute new content. So if I write the next major hit for psalm singing, right? No one would know about it until the next publication of a new edition of the Psalms, right? none of them offer the ability to link or to share particular settings. And none of them, as I said there, use archival data standards. Now, this is the real reason why I'm hung up on the archival standards. So unfortunately, many of the kids, I'm guessing, are not going to know any of these. Actually, I'm going to ask, do you have any of you seen any of these logos before? Which one? N one? Okay, maybe the N one. Okay, adults in the room?
I'm using Word perfectly now.
There we are. Fantastic. All right, great. So I'm glad for that example, because usually I have to go to my mother for that example, because she was an administrative professional at a university in the States, and that is what she used for word processing. So kids in the room, before the days of Word, Microsoft Word, Word Perfect was the thing that everybody used, right? And then around 1995, the world decided that it was going to use Microsoft Word instead. And so all the people who were using Word Perfect have had to find very interesting ways of trying to maintain their files, right? But there are loads of other examples on this slide. All of them are, if they're not defunct, they are nearly defunct, right? They don't exist anymore. And that's the problem when we don't use archival quality data, right? We don't know if a particular company goes under, if, for instance, a developer of a particular app decides, I'm not going to invest my time in this anymore. What happens to the data? Well, it just goes away, right? And everybody's left trying to figure something else out. And so as we sort of think about this and our responsibility to future generations, I think as I'll say, as the Christian church as a whole who sings psalms, I think it is incumbent upon us to start think about, okay, how can we actually do the coming generations a favor and give them the data that they will need whenever they go and build their applications, right? And so I have developed a platform. Now, before I get to that, I do want to highlight this. So there was a big project run by Google. Probably you've heard of Google Books before. Some of you may use it from time to time. But basically what Google did was it went across the world, basically, into libraries, and they sat down with a book scanner, so these huge photographic units that they would just plop down on a table, and then they would just start pulling books off shelves and imaging all of those books, making images, photographs of all of the contents of each of those books, right? There were loads of issues with copyright that they had to run through the courts, but eventually they settled out and Google was given permission to do these things. However, what you had was people looking through books who don't necessarily know how to use the books. So if we look at this example, and I know that it's maybe difficult for those in the room, particularly at the back of the room, to see what we have here. But what we have here is Psalm 1 and Psalm 2 in the Scottish Metrical Psalter. So those are both common meter texts, and they are on the same image as a tune called Altorf, which is long meter. Do you see a problem? Can you actually sing Psalm 1 or Psalm 2 to the tune Altorf? Not without changing Altorf, right? So, but this is the way that it appears in Google Books, right? So we can't just rely on our librarians, archivists to know how to use these things. I think it's good if we know how we use them for us to start to generate this. And so that was the impetus behind the project that I am working on today. So this is the big introduction, but the big project that I'm working on is called the Digital Split Leaf. And I've started work with the editions that I initially focused on when I was working on my PhD. So that was the 1564 to 65 Scottish form of prayer. So this was the Psalter of John Knox. Kids, you probably heard of John Knox. Hopefully you have. Yep. So that was the Psalter that he used. and then also the 1650 Scottish Metrical Psalter because it's in the public domain. And to these, then I added the most common tunes that are sung with both of these texts. And so that is the digital split leaf reader. Now I'm going to ask if it's a big thing for us to switch over so that we can maybe showcase some of what's going on with the site. And I'm going to probably steal your mouse too, if that's possible. See if we can actually do this. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll sit over here. You don't need to see me. You can see the screen. That's the most important thing. And that way I don't have to take your mouse away from you completely. Why did you change my thing to? Perfect. All right. Great. Just click on the new result. Yeah. Say that sharing. Yep. There's another error message.
Oh,
You got stuff something there? All right. Try that. Keep your seat. Yeah, just sorry. So this is the interface that I've developed. And what you do is you come over here to the sandwich menu, and you can select from the editions that I currently have. Right now, full editions are available of both the 1564 Soundbook as well as the 1650 Scottish Metrical Psalter. I've started adding some from the 2004 Irish Psalter just because of things that we do at my church, but that's not to say that's where we're gonna end. So I'm going to select the Scottish Metrical Psalter. Now, from the children in the front row or near front row, is there a particular song that you know that you would like to see? Yes.
Psalm 45.
Psalm 45. Okay, so we'll go to Psalm 45.
Second version.
Second version. Fantastic. Now, which verses would you like to sing?
One to five.
Okay, I'm going to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Alarm.
See if I've got that. I actually can take more. I'm not sure if I have it. Oh. This is.
That down to the visual here, messages and text, just go back down to the bottom of the switch.
Oh.
And hit on the, that's it. Just click on that.
Sorry. Really loud.
I think I've put that 500 of those.
Oh, of course I did.
So you're on the trying to go to see that.
So we said Psalm 45, right? Yes?
Yeah.
All right. So Psalm 45, version 2, right? Yep, great. You say 1 to 5. And I'm not gonna. So we could, well, I'm not gonna attempt with the keyboard at the moment. So you said, what was the tune?
Alarm.
I don't have. Is there another tune that you know? Dennis? Okay, we can do that. We make a note of that and we'll add it. Okay, so that's a good one. Dennis. Oh. That was it.
It's short meter. Yeah. Mm,
Oh, 148.
148. Okay, let's go now. Okay. And that's the 66688, yeah. Okay. Say John. John, okay, right. So then I'm gonna do it in a presentation mode just because. Okay, so there we go. So we've what we've done is we've taken a melody file, a song file, and we've taken a text file and we brought them together so that we've underlaid the music right underneath the with the text, underlaid the text right underneath the music. Now here's going to be the next challenge. We'll see if we can play it.
I did it worked early.
Okay, great. So I'll stop it there, but what we can do is, as you can see, what it's done is it's provided us all of the verses that we selected. And it just keeps going, it just keeps repeating the melody for us until we reach the end of the text. Now, for those of you who are who have more mature eyes, we'll put it that way. We can enlarge things for you so that you can see a little bit better if you need to. We can also, as I said, let's say, for instance, that was just a touch fast for me. So I'm going to slow that down slightly. And let's just assume that I want to work on the alto part only. So I can now listen to the alto. And I can just learn the alto part if I want. Now, let's say that actually might be a little bit better for me to hear the melody with the alto, so I can do that. Or you know what? That's a little bit slow for me. Let's go a little bit faster. That would be too crazy. That as well. Just a little bit faster. Right. Now, another cool thing that you can do here from this particular page is you can create a PDF. So you can print this out. So you can create your particular sheet. So if you're doing an order or service, for instance, and you want to produce the actual thing to hand out to people, you can do that and choose the size of page that you want to create there. If you want to share this with other people, you say, actually, this is a fantastic tune for this particular text. I'm going to share that on my social media. You could do that from there. And the brilliant thing is that the link that has been created here will take that person to that particular setting that you have selected. So all of the text, but all of the stanzas that you've selected, the tune that you've selected, and even if you've decided that you just want, so I can want it in presentation mode. Now I didn't really describe what that is. So I can choose to either have a single line of text underneath, or I can produce all the stanzas like what you would find in a common modern day hymnal today. So you could do it either way. And as you're seeing, you could do these things on the fly. So even if I wanted to say change the tune, and I know we're quite happy with St. John, but let's just say I wanted to do Bevan instead, all I could do is switch Bevan, and there we go. There's Bevan ready to go. And you can sing that one as well if you know it. But why don't, since we have folks here who I think are quite happy to do some singing, shall we try and sing this from the screen? How about that? So let me get this up and going. And I'm going to do it in
Pitch down at all.
Absolutely, we could do that. I did not show you that, so we do have the ability to transpose. So let's bring it down a full step. How about that? And let me get us a pitch. That's really fast still. But I'm not gonna be playing. We're just gonna sing it a cappella, okay? But I'll try and present here while I'm sitting down. Hopefully I'll be good enough. Make sure I get the right place with changing the screen. So yeah, we'll just sing all of the stanzas. The Lord and God His glory reigns in the angels' praise, name of His praise. In glorify Son, in songs, sing high, sing out songs. God to be God from below, you sound Jesus, falling upon swings and snow, moving from mountain peaks. Praise ye His name, hills great and small, trees small and small, big small. All things that deep are found, in above and from. All nations be on all men and children's young. In young and old, exalt His name, for our sins shall be exalted. Let God's name be praised.
Thank you very much for that. So I've done a lot of talking and we've had a nice bit of singing. So what I would suggest is that we take a little bit of a break. That sounds good to everyone. Come back in about 5 minutes or so. And then we'll just do a quick second half on a little bit more of the background of what's going on with the Daedalus belief and sort of what this particular project that I'm working on presently is all about. So more to come. So, thank you. Great. And I should be muted as well, so I'm not hopefully creating any feedback. That's the other thing. Oh. Y'all good? All right, great. Success. Hopefully some success here with the technology, but we'll see how we get on here.
Well, start again.
So thanks again, everybody, for coming back. So I'm just going to talk you through here in the second portion very briefly about what it is that I'm doing here with the project now. So a lot of what I've discussed is sort of the build-up of what I've done up to now. And so now I'd like to sort of talk about what the goal is for the project, why I'm here, and all of these things. So there's a guy by the name of Donald Boyd, who has a son by the name of James Boyd. And he produced this booklet called What's That Tune? A Melody Index of Solfa Tunes. And this has identified, and this very person, this James Boyd, he's identified around 300 editions of the Psalters thus far. So he has been looking through trying to figure out what editions of the Psalms actually exist out there in various languages. And so around 300. So if we assume, okay, let's just say there's only one setting of each psalm in each of those 300 editions, right? Then that puts us at about 45,000 individual texts of varying lengths, right? Now, we're not even talking about music at this point. We're just talking about text, right? So 45,000 with then countless tunes to be added to them. So if we're just trying to put together an archive of psalmody, the task is massive, right? And indeed, it's probably bigger than any one person could actually do. So the question becomes, how do we ensure that these 300 editions are not lost to time? They're not lost to people like Google trying to figure out how do we scan this Psalter. Indeed, if you think about, if you use a Psalter in your church, you go to the book and you say, okay, in 200 years' time, if one that I use in my church, okay, so if I open this up in 300 years' time, let's say that someone stumbles across this book, are they going to know how to use this book? And the answer to that is probably not, right? Because even in the introduction to these, they oftentimes don't go into enough detail to actually use them. We are, as human beings, oftentimes reliant on passing traditions down orally or by practice, right? That's how we learn these things. However, as someone who studied early modern psalmody, it's frustrating how oftentimes I was able to ask questions and we didn't have an answer because nobody bothered to write it down, right? If I asked, okay, what did they sing on this really important occasion when they sang a psalm? Well, we don't know because they just said they sang a psalm. And even though it was probably impactful at the time, a lot of the time, they didn't actually write it down. So how can we ensure that in terms of what we're doing for future generations, that we can do our best to train them, to give them as much information on how we sang the Psalms. Not necessarily that they have to follow us exactly, but that they can learn from us just as we have learned from previous generations. So as we look at this particular example, so this is from Mendelssohn's Elijah, the Lift Thine Eyes. If we were to look at this, you might say, okay, there's music there, even if you're at the back of the room and you're struggling to make out the text. There is music here, right? As a human being, you can understand there's music here. However, if I was to ask my computer whether there's music there, my computer would not know the answer to that question, right? Now, the reason why I say that is because what I've done here is I've taken a PDF and I have put that here on this slide. So my computer, for all my computer knows is that there's a series of black dots on the screen. It doesn't know anything about the meaning of those dots. Nothing, it has no idea, right? Unless I can sort of feed some software and say, okay, I'm gonna show you this image and I'm gonna have your software sort of determine where the notes are and all the lines are and all these things. That's very complicated, very difficult for a computer to do, by the way. So it's not an easy task. But as far as my computer is concerned, that's just black and white pixels, right? So how do we use this? And this comes to the question of why might we what we call digitize something? PDFs are a proprietary format. So remember the slide there at the first half where I had all of the logos on. We come we come face to face with a problem where what happens if Adobe goes belly up, right? And no longer is supporting PDF formats. Indeed, it would probably be the collapse of Western civilization as we know it, seeing as everybody and their dog decides to use PDFs these days. However, if that were to happen, there's nothing that we can do in terms of continuing to use and access that data, right? So how can we develop standards, develop files that are more immune to these types of market demands? How can I get my computer to understand what it is that is actually showing up on that page? So that I can do in the now, besides just preserving things, I can also do some really cool things with it. So I can actually start searching for music. I didn't show you this because we were sort of short on time, but the digital split leaf, if you want to, I'll show it to you later, allows you to search for melodies. So you plunk things out on a keyboard, or if you know solfa, you plug your solfa in and it will provide you with the tunes that have that particular excerpt, either at the start or in the middle somewhere, right? Or I can search for a text, right? That's more common way of searching that we're used to these days. But that's due to the fact that we have the data actually in the computer in a way that the computer can work with it. So these are the types of things that we're wanting to provide people access to. And in order to do that, we have to generate the data. Now, as I said, 45,000 texts just by themselves. I don't have the time to do that, even if I do have a research assistant helping me out, right? So how do we do this? Well, I think it's really important, given that psalm singing is a very diverse practice, even just here in Scotland. I think it's important for us to try and give everybody a voice as much as we can to say, actually, yes, for Psalm, what was that, 45? Yes, we use this particular tune. And I want to provide you with that tune. I think that we should be able to do that, right? And so what I have done, and what I'm trying to do with this project is to help the people who are actually singing psalms to see that they have a role to play in ensuring that the coming generations know how to sing the psalms. And so what I've done is I have developed a data set that we're using on the back side of things, so what feeds into the website, to gather and create an archive of Metrical Psalmody. And so what we're now focusing on is to identify different types of users. So what I've identified 4 different types of users. So a basic user, so someone who basically sings the psalms, anyone who sings the psalms. We all do this. If I open up a Psalter and I say, oh, there's a little bit of a typo there, or that note isn't the right note, it should be a different note. We all do that in the back of our minds, whether we know it or not. It's happening. So that is a really important function and something that everybody can contribute to and say, hey, we need to correct this. And the brilliant thing is that when we have a digital version, we don't have to wait until the next printing in order to fix the problem, right? We can fix it immediately, or at least near immediately. So, but in order to do that, we need people working through the texts, the people who are actually using them to flag these issues so that we can correct them. Then we have contributors. So these are people that know, hey, there's this cool new tune that has just been produced up in the Highlands or in Lewis or something like this, right? And it's catching fire. Everybody really enjoys this tune. Sounds familiar, maybe recent history, like 10, 15 years ago, right? And so what happens? How do we actually distribute that? Well, we could produce it and we could publish it here on this platform. And that way, if someone is in Lewis, or if someone is down in Airdrie, or if someone is in Philadelphia in the United States, they could start singing it. Or if someone is in Korea, they could start singing that too, right? So those would be the contributors. The third level is specialist editors. So these are people that are expert in either text editing, people who have experience in editing music. Those types of people would be able to ensure that the text and the music are accurate. And then expert editors would be those who have hopefully skill sets on both sides of things. So those are the 4 tiers, and hopefully in one sense you can sort of, as you sort of evaluate your own expertise, you can sort of say, okay, actually I could probably be a user because I use the Psalter on a regular basis, and I could definitely say to someone, hey, there's an error on this page, you need to fix it. That's a very valuable task. So I'm trying to get the community to start thinking about, okay, what can you do? How can you contribute towards making sure that Psalmody is available to the coming generations? And so what I would like to do, hopefully this will work, and I need to put this thing up. There we go. All right, so I'd be very interested. Does everybody have a phone? These are things that my students at Glasgow, as soon as they see one of these little things pop up on their screen, they're like, oh, I got to get my phone out because I'm going to have to scan it. Okay, so hopefully you can zoom to scan this lovely little box code thing. And those of you who are online, you should be able to scan this as well. And indeed, you should be able to participate. So please do. So this is a little survey. It's just going to ask you a very simple question. Once you scan it, we'll ask you to provide 1 or 2 word, or if you want to provide a phrase, that's totally fine. But in answer to the question, what would we need to capture in order to and preserve, and if we were wanting to preserve a Psalter? So if I'm trying to preserve my Psalter that I showed here before, what types of things do I need to capture? What types of things do I need to preserve in order to say I preserved this thing, right? So have a think about it. Hopefully everybody's been able to get into the survey okay with their phone. Maybe not. Is anyone able to get in yet? Okay. Hopefully then what will happen is as you start typing, it should. This is the we've had enough technology issues, but hopefully this will work. It'll start populating for us. There we go, language. Okay, fantastic. And the cool thing about it is that the more people say language, then it gets bigger, and people who say other things, it'll get smaller and all these other things. So weigh in. What types of things would you want to capture? I'll sort of talk through some of these as they pop up as we're sort of waiting. But language is a really important one, right? Up here, we're focused on Gaelic, we're focused on Scots, we're focusing on English, right? And there is no reason why all 3 cannot be captured and preserved, right? If we're talking about Korean, there's no reason why Korean should also not be preserved. Chinese, there's a Chinese metrical Psalter. There's no reason why that shouldn't be preserved. There were ones in Italy, Pakistan, African languages, Spanish, French, German, Dutch, all of these, right? Language is really important. Old tunes, yes, by all means, old tunes, right? We tend to forget tunes. Like I showed that one example that really probably nobody knew. And did anyone, by the way, was that familiar to anybody? Maybe okay, Donald knew it. So yeah, most of us weren't familiar with that tune, but that was a tune that was more common back around 1900, which was the source of that particular tune when I got that. So having old tunes, access to those old tunes so that we can relearn some of the tunes that maybe we've lost throughout the years. Meter, for sure, meter. One of the things that John Calvin focused on with the Geneva Psalter was that each psalm is unique and therefore should have its own unique expression, which oftentimes included having its own unique meter. So if you have different meters, why not use them if they can be useful in helping people to memorize a psalm or to express the psalm in a unique way? Now, you might think about the opposite, right? Because the 1650 is sort of the inversion of that, right? Where you can sing the entire Psalter with just one tune. Now, we might argue about the facility of that in terms of memorization. However, the principle is there so that if you're just learning, you don't have to know 30 tunes. You can just know 1 or 2 tunes and you can make your way through the entire Psalter, which does have value, does have is helpful. Meaning is also a really interesting one, and I'm not sure if someone's willing to chime in on what they mean by meaning. Okay. Right. Okay. So to show what we, if nothing else, to show what we mean by a particular text, to try and capture what the intention was behind the wording, maybe for a particular edition, 1650 or 1564. What did they mean by this phrase? Was it as incendiary as what we might think today? Like, you know, we had the example of Psalm 148. We're talking about dragons here, right? Okay. Probably not thinking in the realm of Komodo dragons, I'm guessing. But yes, what did they mean in the early modern period when they wrote dragons as a valid translation of this particular song? I think that's quite an important one to think about, right? Yeah. So some good thoughts that way. So these are the types of things that we can actually start to encode, and we can actually start to capture this. So what I've done is I have created a community page that resides on GitHub, which is the place where all the coders go, but you don't have to be a coder to go there. But we've created a community page that allows you to contribute. So you can place comments there. You can actually change some of the additions. So for instance, if you notice that a text is not quite right, you can say, hey, we suggest that you change this text. And it's something that can be done rather quickly and rather easily. You can suggest new content there as well. So it's a place really for the community to start coming together, people from all denominations, to say, okay, how can we work together to actually preserve this thing that we all do when we sing the Psalms? We built a whole workflow. I'm not going to go through that in detail. You can't really probably read it because of the screen with the blue is horrible. So my apologies for that. It looks a lot better on my monitor, but that doesn't help you at all. Even so, we have a workflow that is systematic, that allows for the data to be edited, for people to contribute without actually doing any damage to the core data sets. That's the important thing. We are working with archival standards with this. So we have an archive that we're starting to build, and we're adding to it, we're editing it, but we're careful whenever we do add or edit it. Add to it or edit it. So in terms of our needs, then, we do need people to look through texts. So we have been given permission to include all of the texts for the Free Churches Sing Psalms. And so we have already put those texts up, and they are available. Yes, Sunghoon? Yes, that's right. We did do that. So those are already there. But the thing is that we need help to ensure that the words are broken into syllables properly, because although we used AI to help us out a little bit, it's not 100% accurate. So we need human eyes, human singers, to actually go through it and say, okay, yeah, this is accurate, this is not accurate. Right? We need people to identify if there are any misprints, because these things do happen. And so identifying those so that we can fix those as well. We do have musical needs as well. So if you are musically inclined and know how to read music and are happy to do some music editing, we have also gained permission to place all of the non-copyright musical editions from the Sing Psalms on the site as well. So we will have the full set of Sing Psalms available in short order. I'm hoping in short order as a result of this project. But again, we will need people to help us with the musical side of things. So if you are so inclined, we would invite you to consider engaging and helping out with that. So in order to engage with the community, one of the best places that you can do that is through our discussion forum. So if you're on GitHub, there is a place for discussions there, and that will allow you to type in a question or type in a comment to say, hey, where is this tune? I think you should add this tune. That would be a great place to do that type of thing. Now, I know that I am, well, we have a little bit of time, but just really quickly highlight a few things that are upcoming with this project. So we have one more training workshop that's similar in content to what we've done today. That will be running online. So if you know folks who maybe were unable to make it here today, who would be interested in this type of thing, please feel free to pass the information on to them. We'll be holding that workshop on Saturday, the 25th of July from 2:30 to 4 online exclusively. If you are interested, we're just asking at this stage to send us an email at digital-splitleaf@protonmail.com, and we'll get you the details on how to join in. We are thinking about an online hackathon, so it's not as incendiary as what it sounds. It's really just one of these sessions where we're going to spend some time together to start working our way through some of these texts, to start editing them, or if people are interested in music, to give you some initial pointers to say, okay, this is how you edit the music. This is what we need you to do, and just work together, probably online. So throw up a Zoom or something like that. People join the Zoom, and we'll all work together and make sure that the texts are all edited and the data is solid. So if you're interested in that, please do send us an email and be happy to set that up. We are also holding, we're not going to, it's already been announced, but we are holding a tune writing competition in which we are being co-sponsored by the Samsung. So you might have heard of that resource. But we're offering a £200 prize to the first prize for this tune writing competition. We're asking people to select a text from the 1650 Scottish Metrical Psalter to ensure widest possible application of the tune or use of the tune. The details are there. The deadline is the 31st of August for that. And so £200 for the first prize, £100 for second, £50 for the third prize. And we are offering a separate prize of £50 for the best non-common meter tune. So something that's maybe a little bit different that way as well. So if you're interested in that or know someone who has gifts that way, please do send them the details, because we are very happy for any entries for that. We will be singing the tune for the first time at a community psalm singing event on the 6th of November. That's a Friday evening. That'll be held down in Airdrie. That's my home church. But we will be live streaming that. So if you're not able to get down to Airdrie, I know it's a bit of a trek from here, but absolutely, we would be happy for folks to join in online, because we will live stream that as well. If you're interested in any of these events, you can contact us via email. We also have presence on Facebook as well as X. So please do follow us there. A couple of things that we do on a regular basis through our Facebook in particular is that we do have a Psalm of the Week. So we go through and we select a particular psalm and say, hey, join us in singing this psalm this week. And it will use the link, and it'll just display it for you using the split leaf interface to say, okay, sing the psalm with us this week. And then we also have a monthly blog that we're just sort of talking through stories of people singing the psalms. So the next post is going to be coming up in about a week or so. So I need to work on that. I think someone's doing the next one. So it's going to be on hopefully James Melville. So if you're interested in that type of thing. Is it James? No, I keep saying that. It's Andrew Melville. Andrew Melville and some psalms that he wrote. So anyway, so we have those resources. But apart from that, I just want to say thank you very much for your time, for listening to me ramble on. But hopefully it's been interesting. Hopefully it's been engaging to you. If you are so inclined, we do have a survey in which we're sort of trying to gather information about practice and how people are using the psalters. The usefulness of this particular workshop, particularly showcasing this digital split leaf. So if you don't mind scanning that lovely little QR code, that'll take you to that survey. If you're not so inclined, there's no pressure. But thank you very much. I'm happy to show more things. If you want to see some of the search interface stuff, I'm happy to show that as well. But overall, that's my presentation for today, but I do appreciate your time and interest. Thanks.
Trying to get on Split Leaf on Facebook. I keep getting tea. There's a particular tea called Split Leaf. UK Ceylon Authentic Special Blend. That's not me.
That's not, no.
Is it digital Split Leaf?
It's just splitleaf.org.
Okay.
And hopefully the www looks as well.
Do any people have questions? I'll pick this up.
Can I just ask, what's the general inspiration for the project? What was it that drew you to this? Why did you think it's important?
Yeah. So with my background with sound singing, looking at the apps there, sort of as I was showing you there at the start, it just struck me that if in 50 years time, 100 years time, if those apps may not still exist, and this is my mindset. I'm now in information studies, and that's a lot of what we focus on in that subject area is cultural heritage and making sure that however we define that in some way that it is preserved. And it strikes me that in a lot of ways, sound singing is fading in some ways from public consciousness, particularly in Scotland, if we compare Scotland to where it was 50 years ago. Talking with folks in Airdrie who don't even attend church anymore, they still, if they're of a certain age, usually around so if they're at least 30 years old, they'll know at least one or two psalms. They'll know Psalm 23, they may know Psalm 100, right? And if they're older than that, they'll know more. But the reason for that is they used to sing the Psalms in school, and they don't sing the Psalms in school anymore. So we have generations of children now growing up in school systems that don't get that, and they don't get it from church either. So in one sense, I think there's a really strong case to be made that psalmody is fading from practice here in Scotland even. And I think if we're not careful, it will dramatically change. And we might not be able to control how it changes, not that we necessarily want to wholly control, but I think we do want to document how it is that we're doing it, so that other generations can learn from us.
I suppose this is what I was thinking about. Especially to children. Yeah, and this is fascinating to me. And the feel that was put in my mind was sort of was rest a little bit and scary. I have a very good friend who used to work for charity. Northlands, Western archiving solving for the children. That activity was really impetus behind that activity was awareness that these things were out to the voice. And it just strikes me that is that part of what's happening, being really awareness that these things are about to be lost, in which case there's quite poignancy to what's happening with this digital art tradition. Or do you think that the digitization of psalmody would offer a new pathway to the recovery of psalmody?
Yes, I say both. Yeah, there is the danger of it passing, and if particularly as we look to the Highlander, this was something that someone mentioned in a previous workshop, as we sort of think about even Highland psalm singing traditions, where you have individual presenters with their own individual style, their own individual, I find out the best way of describing it, their own way of presenting particular tunes, right? That is very specific to that person, right? Those will be lost. That will be lost unless we do something about it. And this method starts to give us the tools to begin to preserve that. Cutting edge musicology right now is focused on the sort of formative aspect of trying to capture variations in performance, right? And this is at the core of that. So I want to be able to give us a framework. So that's the fancy word, but basically a technology that allows us to start to do that, so that we don't lose some of this. Now, there is a sense in which once you write something, once you capture it, human beings being the way that they see something in print and they think that's the way it is, or it formalizes it in a way that maybe you're not trying to formalize. And I think that's where, in one sense, if you can capture not only the way one person does it on Lewis, but if you also capture the way someone here in Inverness does it versus another person up and Wick versus another person over on Harris, so you start capturing a body of performance. It starts to illustrate that there was variety to it and it was highly individualized. And therefore, you, as operating, living 200 years in the future, yes, you should develop your own style, but here's the basic framework that style fits within, right? So there's that, but then I think that then starts to answer the for the future, because as we know, tunes are being written, but we just don't oftentimes know about it, right? And as Psalmody continues to develop into a more worldwide singing tradition, I think it is potentially quite poignant for someone in Korea. I keep saying Korea because someone is there. So someone in Korea could write a new psalm tune and they could share it, and the church here in Scotland, a church here in Scotland could decide, actually, we're going to join our brothers and sisters in Korea. We're going to sing this psalm to this tune. We're going to use English texts, we'll use Gaelic texts, but we'll sing the same tune. And so that there's this global sharing that potentially could occur that really starts to enrich the singing practice, and hopefully encourage people to continue to use more. Yeah.
There's something you haven't mentioned because of the Adelaide institution into it. One of the things that annoys me is the inability to read the domain for themselves. We've got and it's something to be reading. There's stop reading other things. Is there any thought about moving that to something that we probably get or do you think it's on to be used? But if you're going to get people interested in sounds, different sources that have to really it's really it's one of these standards. But something that's not very I would like to very much like to see that. It was a strangers coming into the church. First of all, the usage of the which are sitting about that actually being pretty different sitting for everybody, no, who made the stuff. But also, it's actually really sound.
Yeah, so couple things there. I appreciate that comment. I have intentionally tried to engage all of the major psalm singing denominations in Scotland as much as I can with this. And I was speaking with some men who are part of the Free Church Continuing, and their big thing was not necessarily about learning new tunes, but learning the tunes that we already have better. And I think that this helps with that. I think it provides a unique set of tools that allows people to start to learn how to read. And I've not shown it here because it's still very much in development phase, but I am actively working on getting solfa up. So not just staff notation, but also getting solfa alongside. It's a very difficult task. but it's one that, but I'm in the midst of working. But if we can do the same type of thing where I can highlight where we are in the melody as it's playing through, I think that's a really helpful pedagogical tool for people to learn not just the melody, but also the parts. But in addition to that, it's important for them to hear the parts. So in my experience in the United States, most churches in the United States would sing in 4 parts without issue, right? No, again, a cappella, but no issue to sing in 4 parts. And that's not because they know how to read music. What it is that they've heard their parents, they've heard their people, and they're growing up in their congregation, they've heard them sing in parts. And what happens is that the music then becomes a mnemonic device that shows them which direction their voice should be going as a reminder. And what's fascinating about that to me is that that's actually the where medieval music used to be, right? Before we got really, really complicated with the way we notate music, that's the way it was originally. And so that is the way that it is serving today. So people are learning by hearing other people singing. They're also learning by they're remembering by seeing that visual cue, right? So whether that's through staff notation, whether that's through SOFA, whether that's through something else, this system is there to start allowing people to develop these things to help people to learn. Right? Just saying what they have, potentially what is maybe new as well. Does that help to answer? Yeah.
One of the primary points I can include worship of God. So what I would say is sometimes you occasionally hear people having Saturday classes, but that is not the solution. I don't know any congregation that cannot sing. Problem is centers. If you've got a good presenter, don't get any congregation to sing. So what you need are presenters classes. And center thing. Presenters classes, and then there are skills for everything that need to be taught.
Mhm.
And they many people in the big line. I don't know how that quite fits in with what we're doing. I think it's helpful.
So just to follow up, and I meant to say this in my initial comment, and I got wrapped up in other things. But one of the great things about the tools that have been developed, and it just needs a little bit of tweaking. It's time to tweak them. But there is one of the cool things about AI these days is these large language models. But what they allow us to do is to do textual analysis to get a sense of a text. So if I can feed into my computer a specific portion of a Psalm 78 or Psalm 119, the big ones, right? Or even a small one. But what I could do is I can actually generate an analysis of that text, right? Let's set that aside. I can do the same thing for music. Right? And if I can do the same thing with the music as I can do with the text, I can actually overlap them to say, okay, what tune best meets the demands of that particular text. Not just a psalm, like we're singing Psalm 78, and we have certain tunes that we generally sing to Psalm 78, but I'm talking about the specific stanzas. I'm talking about the specific accents in that text that I want to address, or I know my minister wants to address because he's addressing this passage, and so this is going to be the focus of the sermon. How can I draw that out musically as a presenter? Part of it that I see this tool helping potentially is to develop more advanced tools for the presenter to make better decisions that aren't just, well, we're singing this because that's the tune we've always sung, right? We're singing this tune because it actually highlights that particular portion of the text much better. That there's also a training element to the presenters, and I get that. but I'm trying to help as much as I can. I think that. Yes. Well, and having the time to actually sit down and provide access to that. the great thing is that once we have the data, we can start doing that stuff. And someone else could come along and say, yeah, I'm happy to build that too. And you know, whether it's through my website or whether it's through their own platform, I don't care. But if there's a way that people get access to this data and they can innovate things that will be a help to the church, I think that's a benefit.
You mentioned voice out too.
Yes.
Got some copies here.
Fantastic.
That's entirely up to you.
Plugs received. Welcome. I guess one point, unless there's anything else wanted to say, I think we'll wrap up very, very shortly. I mean, what I see you doing here is in some sense bucking a trend a bit, and that's maybe part of the challenge. That certainly kind of what we call the evangelical world, but possibly even also the Catholic world too. There's a drive to homogenization in the church. You know, basically saying the same stuff as everybody else does across the world. Maybe in translation, maybe not, maybe just in English. What you're trying to do is actually vary things and have different tunes and also the question of the Psalter, which seems, I think, in many people's minds who are not from a kind of strongly informed background, is to see the Psalter as something which belongs to a kind of older dispensation and a particular dispensation. And what we're about is, no, we want to have things more universal, more for everyone, more for the Gentiles as well as for the Jews. And I think there are those kind of things you're having to fight against, I suppose, and just trying to make the Psalter seem. Well, I guess the best thing you can do is just show how it works. And I think one of the part of the beauty of the project is it's a practical project. We had a demonstration of that just there, you know, about an hour ago, where there were people singing beautifully in a committed way, in a skillful way as well, and making that joyful noise. So I think the more that's demonstrated, the better. But it is a challenge, isn't it, because of the way that worship music tends to be, as understood.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think you sort of put your thumb on the idea here is that you demonstrate the vitality of the practice itself. That it is not just a static, dead singing tradition. People are still being encouraged spiritually through it. People are still reliant on it, just as they always have been throughout the history of the Judeo-Christian heritage that is ours. People have sung the Psalms ever since David started writing, and Moses even started writing some of them, right? So yeah, how do we continue in that tradition? To what extent it is exclusive or not is not the question that I'm trying to answer here. There are loads of other resources out there that are dedicated to promoting hymns and hymn singing. There's not any that are dedicated to preserving psalm singing. And I think that's the gap that I'm trying to address here.
Please close in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for the ways in which you've enriched us in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom, in terms of our hearts being warmed by the singing and by the excitement of the potential for this project. We ask that you would bless Tim in this project and Solomon as well as he helps. That you would also help us to know how to contribute this with something that would help us all to experience what it is to worship properly, to worship in spirit and truth, to worship according to inspired words of faith that we are so fortunate to have. Deepen our faith, Lord, deepen our knowledge, deepen our love for you and for each other as we go out this evening. And thank you again in Jesus' name. Amen.